be like, really trust that that would like work, that you are now my panelists. Any one of you could be a fabulous panelist, that's great.
Jeff asked me to say a couple words about why we're holding this night, and so, as you know, as Fayerweather parents and faculty, and what do you call it if you used to work here? Are you an alum faculty?
Sure. Yeah, I guess alum.
Survivors.
Fayerweather.
No, like nostalgic.
So Fayerweather spends a lot of time talking about being an opening and welcoming community, and in recent times, gender identity has now become a prominent discussion, and something, quite frankly, Fayerweather wasn't talking a lot about. We were talking about all the other letters, but not so much the T. And so, for us as a staff, it was a big learning opportunity and something that we had a good framework on, and we were extending our framework. And I am hopeful that in our many conversations that we've had with families so far, that we look to extend that. And I think for us, because we are a fairly competent community and talking about a lot of different things, one of the things that we say is we're going to make mistakes, and that you got to be able to ask questions, and those questions, that intent versus impact, you want to learn from that and hopefully be in a space where we're able to do that. And I'm always proud that our community is able to take those risks and be able to have that dialogue and then move forward. So I think a lot when we, when Jeff came and talked to the faculty, there was I definitely had I felt I was, I don't know, wherever here, and then I had some questions, and by the end of that hour I was like, oh, is it over here just a little bit more? And there was a couple key things that I was kind of grappling with, and you helped me move over. So I hope wherever you are on that line, you make a little bump.
Thanks so much, Ed. Well, I just want to thank you so much for inviting me to be back here and part of this community. It's a real privilege to be a part of this conversation with all of you. I live not too far from here near Fresh Pond, so you will find a comfortable spot. You've decided being part of the panel is preferable. It's not that scary, really. Good. So I just want to thank Ed and Suzanne and the other folks who've really been, Alyssa, and who've been involved in organizing things and helping this conversation to move along here. It's a wonderful community, and this is so exciting to have this total. We brought the A game tonight here to have Zach and Alex and Amy and Roger and maybe Elizabeth, another child who's running around here, might be joining your sister, exactly, who may be joining us at some point. So one of the things that we talk about from the very beginning is that this work is steeped in positive psychology, that we talk about the value of shining a light on the bright spots. What does it look like when things go well, and what are the factors that contribute to that, and how do you create more of it? And it's also about how the value of positive emotions, that positive emotions help people be more open and creative. And so in that spirit, we will start off with just getting everybody to talk to each other. So with the person next to you, we want you to talk about 3 good things that have happened in the last 24 hours. All right? And if you need to go back 48 hours, I see the look on some of your faces here, that you can go back 48 hours, and the only other rule is nothing's too small. So we'll put you in pairs here. You two, you two, you two, you two, you two. Connie, are you going to be a part of this?
Yeah, I can, I think.
Okay, you two, you two, you two, you two, you two. Introduce yourself if you don't know each other. What happened to your guy? You better crash that group for now.
It's terrible because I have just as many like a rough Darla, finally got her today. I also know she over the bar.
I was joking.
Do you?
I just, well, I saw the sunrise, so now I'm seeing the sunrise every time I ride my bike to work, and I'm just always so happy. It's like not a long ride, it's just beautiful, like around fresh water. So that makes me really happy. And I do love my job. I love so many aspects of it, and pretty much everything related to the kids I like about work. So it's a nice to get interaction.
Or outside, they might be outside. Or my child.
The parent should have with their families but he's not straight. He's
All right. We're gonna bring it back here. Okay, so let's start with just a round of introductions, starting with our panel here. And we'll have people just go around and say their name, if they have a role or a connection to being here, and one of their 3 good things. And if you also have anything burning that you were hoping to get from tonight. You don't have to, but we'll start with Zach here.
My name's Zach Kerr. I am a junior at Wheelock College of Boston. I'm also a consultant with the Mass State Schools program. At Wheelock, I'm studying social work. One of my 3 good things is that I got to see my mom last night. It was done last night. It was just me and her, so that was pretty nice.
And maybe just share just a little bit about who you are in connection to this topic so people know what kind of brought you here in your role here.
Yeah, so in this topic, I started working in the state schools program when I was 17. Talking about my experience being, for me, I am transgender, so I was talking about my experience speaking about my experience as a young transgender person, what really went well for me, the types of supports that I received, and how to recreate that in other school systems, and just really kind of how to make support tangible. And so I began that work doing speaking when I was 17 and had moved up and become a trainer, doing that training and technical assistance part, and then officially got the role of consultant. So that's kind of what has brought me here.
And let me just say also about Zach, we actually have a famous panel here that have all been featured in different ways. Zach has many honors, and he's not only been a leader in his school, but has been a leader nationally. He met with Secretary Arnie Duncan, the Secretary of Education, about how to get support at the federal level for programs that we have in Massachusetts here around creating safe and supportive environments for LGBTQ students. He also was honored when he was in high school by Nickelodeon and received one of their Halo Awards, which honors only 4 young people a year for their public service. He's also on Lady Gaga's Born This Way advisory committee for her anti-bullying foundation. So Zach's done a lot of great stuff. We were out in LA when he got that award, hanging out with these people like Darren Criss and Josh Hutchison and people I don't really know or didn't know, but it was a lot of fun. And as I said, we're really glad that he's working with us and has worked with schools all over Massachusetts and beyond. Then we have Alex, who also is famous, and we're going to show you his video in a little bit, but on YouTube that went viral with more than 1 million views. So, Alex, will you just introduce yourself a little bit?
I am Alex. I'm a transgender boy. I'm 10 years old, and one of the 3 things that I said to my mom was I got to have my bass class today.
Your bass class today?
I play upright bass.
Awesome. What grade are you in?
I'm in 5th grade.
I'm Amy, I'm Alex's mom, and that's obviously why I'm here today. We are in Lexington and always just looking for opportunities to work with Jeff and help him out however we can and answer questions, because people have a lot of questions when they don't have a lot of experience with this, so we like to kind of get out there and kind of talk to people. The good thing that happened to me is that I made a friend in the neighborhood who likes to go walking in the morning, so we just moved here in the summer, so it was that was one thing I missed, was having somebody to walk with.
My name is Raj. I'm Alex's dad. Yeah, Amy already said everything, actually. I don't know what else to say.
One of your three
What was
good
your
things.
Oh my gosh. We had a potluck at work today, and I gained too much weight. So I resisted the temptation going to the potluck.
That's great.
My name is Anne, and I have a son in 4th grade here at Fayerweather. And I'm making some kind of craft materials for tomorrow night for Lay's, and I got some good feedback this morning. So, Connie.
Great, thank you.
I'm Suzanne, I'm the assistant head of school. I'm an L in the LGBTQ and Questioning. And a good thing that happened to me today is I had a conversation with a person who's about half my age, an adult, not a student. And it made me feel a little old, but B, it was like a real mentorship kind of conversation, and I felt like it was really fruitful, hopefully for both parties.
Hello, I'm RM. I have 4 kids. One of which is kind of saying that she's a tomboy, and I'm trying to just kind of understand everything that's out there. It's a new world for me.
How old is she?
She is 5th grade.
She's in 5th grade.
She's in 5th grade. And my good thing that happened today is I got to have dinner with my wife, which is not usual. Who's this person?
So I would say, I'm Daisy. I would say we have our youngest, who's the 5th grader, describes herself as I'm Lucy. I define my own gender. She says she presents herself completely as a boy, although when asked says I'm a girl. So we are not sure where in the alphabet soup. She also identifies as pansexual, or quite possibly a lesbian, or maybe bisexual. So she, we have this kind of open conversation. We're really curious about how to be the right support for her, as she's obviously sort of figuring everything out.
What's your role?
My role here?
No,
In life?
In life.
I'm an alumni of this place. I work as a psychologist and counselor in an independent school here in Cambridge, and used to have the privilege of working here at Fayerweather as a counselor. And one of my best 3 things, this one's smile. I get to work with Marissa, and her smile every day is a great thing. She's an absolutely stunning lady.
Wasn't having dinner with you.
That was already taken.
My name is Marissa. I have a daughter here at Fayerweather in kindergarten. My husband is also Kevin, the infamous Kevin, who works in pre-K. And I also work at a local independent school here in Cambridge. The topic of gender is something that's very pertinent to my classroom this year. And
what grade are you doing?
I teach also pre-kindergarten. We call it beginners.
Wonderful, great.
Yeah. And the one good thing is we're sort of doing parent conferences all week this week, and I had a parent conference I was somewhat nervous about yesterday, and it actually went very well, so that was my good thing.
I'm Tom. I'm father of Desmond, who's in first grade here, and just one good thing happened yesterday at work. Somebody I don't have any day-to-day contact with, or actually have interacted with in all my years there, just came up and gave me a very kind of randomly very nice compliment that just kind of made my day. I was like, why don't people just do that more often? So that was just terrific. And my main reason for being here is I just thought it'd be really interesting. I thought it'd be interesting to just come and check it out.
I'm Connie. I one of the librarians here, and I teach growth education. And my good thing was when I was riding my bike to work, I happened to notice that the sunrise was very beautiful, and I stopped and watched it for a little bit before I rode on.
My name is Leslie. I have 2 children that go to school here, one in 5th grade and one in 1st grade. And I'm here because if Connie does it, you should probably go. It's probably going to make you like a more broad thinking person at the end of it, but also the concept of talking about gender and categories that maybe I'm not even aware about is very interesting to me. And when you have 2 kids this day and age, you should sort of be able to do that. So I came for the language, get rid of the language. And the good thing that happened today was there was plenty of toothpaste in the tube.
That's what we said, nothing is too
Great.
small. Exactly.
I'm Leah. I have a 2nd grader and a 5th grader here, and I would say I'm here because I feel like this is not a subject that I have a lot of fluency in, and that I really welcome the opportunity to learn more about. And one of my good things is that I got a brand new pair of sheepskin lined fuzzy slippers that I wore around the house, and it made me really warm and happy.
My name is Bob, and I'm here with my wife, Jen. We have 2 kids at the school. The older one, Audrey, is 12 years old, who's in 7th grade. And she thinks of herself as transgender. And we also have a younger daughter, Stella, who's in 3rd grade. And one really great thing that happened today was I got to see Stella recite a few of the poems that she wrote in Poetry Club.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, I'm Jen, and I have Audrey and Stella and kids. And it's interesting, Daisy, I was thinking about you because Audrey identifies as transgender, but she still wants, and her sex is female, but she identifies as a boy, but wants to be still called Audrey and she, and have her friends, and so I don't know if this is where she'll stay or she'll move, or, so for us it's been just kind of holding her lightly and trying to explain to people too, so they don't ask her too much, because that makes her uncomfortable. And so I'm just really glad everyone came today. And the good thing that happened to me today, one of the good things was meeting Laura, because she's a unit parent and she is the mom of Maddie, who Audrey plays basketball with and soccer with, who has been very welcoming to Audrey as a 7th grader to these teams. And so it's very nice to meet you.
And Jen, I just want to thank Jen and Bob. You've really been instrumental in helping to move along the conversation and deepen and expand it here. And it's wonderful to have you here and sharing some of your experience too, so thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Lisa, and my kids are Sophie and Theo in 3rd grade, twins. And I'm a child and adult psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, and I have much to learn and much to improve upon, and I feel like I'm grateful. I think you said it well, like if Connie does it, I think often if the school does it, I should be here because there's something I'm going to learn. And so I'm very grateful that the school is having this and for everyone. And my good thing is that I had a really nice hour-long conversation with a friend who's a parent here this morning.
So I'm Laura Johnson. I'm Maddie's mom. I'm Maddie's an 8th grader. And I'm here for a lot of reasons. I was on the faculty at Harvard for 14 years in the Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies program and at the School of Education. And I had the pleasure of hearing Jeff and Zach speak before and learned a lot from them, and I'm excited to hear from Alex tonight too. So, you know, I do a lot of work in this area. I just moved over to Boston University and I'm trying to do some work at the School of Education there on awareness, and I found that I've learned the most from talking to young people, so I'm really excited to be there tonight. And until this conversation, my good thing today was having a colleague bring me a cup of tea in the middle of a very long day. But then here I got to meet Audrey's mom, so that's been really great. And one of the things I love about Fayerweather, we're new, we came, and Maddie was a 7th grader, but I just feel like I've met so many wonderful people in the last year and a half, and that's a really special part of the school. So I'm happy to be here.
My name is Rick, and we have 3 kids at the school, a 5th grader and twins in 3rd grade. I'm also a primary care doctor by day, and I think that, you know, we talk about it and think about being open to our friends and to our patients, and just sort of really walking with people in their experience and understanding it and supporting them. And I think there's never enough opportunities to learn about just another way of being able to do so. And one of the really fun things that happened to me today is my oldest patient's 102, and her daughter called me and said, you know, the last 2 days she just does not look good. There's nothing specific, she doesn't look good. And we had a whole conversation and wondered whether she's trying to die. You know, 102 is a pretty ripe age, but let me go see her. So I went to her house and I saw her, and she was much better today. I think she just had a bad flu. And it was just so fun to get that wrong.
My name's Tracy. I have 2 kids here. Eben, who's 8th grade, Cal in 4th. I'm also a teacher for 2nd grade here. Really enjoyed the summers. It feels like 2 years ago. Enjoyed that, made some nice new connections. So I'm here for that again. Also, I have a child who identifies as gender non-conforming / fabulous. So just sort of thinking about, I guess my own place is separating my own processing and his experience, and even though I've thought about this a long time and allow for the possibilities, what's mine? You just sort of check the box, join the club, do the march, like, versus, you know, he's there, what's he doing? And so I'm just trying to find my own. Is my advocacy being quiet or loud? At this point, ultimately, it will be loud. Good thing was I had a kid who asked me to step into the hall, and was most lovely, and said, like, I don't know if it's appropriate, but I was wondering if we could have a red, white, and blue day for France. And I was so impressed that this 2nd grade little kid, like, brought me in the hall, and so we sat down someplace cozy and sort of, what are you thinking about, what do you know? And it just felt like a really nice resolution and moment and language around extremism and how most people help and most people see the same, not the differences, but made me glad to be at the school.
My name is Lauren. I am a teacher in the 1-2 here. I'm also a parent of a 3rd grader at the school and a member of the LGBT community. So all 3 of those things are the reasons why I'm here. I find this topic, you know, that it impacts all areas of my life all the time. So, and my good thing was that I've been having some really great conversations with my colleagues lately about pedagogy and, you know, the pace of childhood and it's been very fulfilling to have those moments in the hallway and keep following up with them, so it's been great.
My name's Ed, I'm the head of school. I'm here because I have a leadership of following from behind, which means that I'm fortunate enough to work in a community where lots of people bring ideas and I help usher it forward. And like to repeat what you said, that Bob, and in this case it was Bob and Jen who helped lead us forward. And my good thing, I'll go back within the 48-hour realm, is that I had a meeting with Jen because there was a growth ed discussion that happened that was, I'll use the word, a little bit bumpy. And so Jen said, oh, that didn't go so well for our family. So we met, and I said, we've learned, let's meet in person. So then we met in person with Alyssa, and then we had a really good conversation. And afterwards we're like, wow, we made that much more progress, more understanding. And we also said, okay, let's meet after movie night next week, because we've learned, like, meet before and meet after. So that's our learning.
And that movie is tomorrow night, is that
Yep.
right?
In the middle.
In the middle.
Right, is that right, Sean?
Yeah, we're not seeing the whole thing, we're seeing the
That's what I'm saying.
24 minute.
The middle.
You see the middle of that?
Yeah, the middle of it, no.
Good. No, and I really appreciate that. We talk a lot about positive psychology in forming, and it's been a course that I've been involved in teaching at Harvard, and specifically one on psychological resilience. And one of the tenets of it, besides focusing on the bright spots, is this idea of a growth mindset that versus a fixed mindset. So people who are familiar with Carol Dweck's book, it's on the table over there, right behind you, Suzanne, I think. It's right there. Mindset. That it's that people with a growth mindset, among other things, are more resilient, right? And one of the aspects of it is seeing challenging situations as opportunities to grow and learn and improve. And those situations could be mistakes, they could be failures, they could just be difficult situations, but it's a way of looking at something. And so I really appreciate your growth mindset, and I actually really see this as a learning experience, and I think that you also brought this up and used the language of learning, that you're here to learn. And I think that that's what's been so exciting about doing this work, is really it's where we were with sexual orientation maybe 10 or 15 years ago in the media and in people's consciousness and awareness, where we tend to be around gender identity right now. And I know many people sort of came out in coming along, and I really appreciate this community. And Eric Rofus was a good friend of mine who was a teacher here way back when he marched in Gay Pride and made a statement by putting a bag over his head and talking about how difficult it was for people to be out. And I just think about the generational differences, and he passed away much too young, and I feel like that's another special aspect for me about being at the Fayerweather School here, because he was such a leader in education among other areas of LGBTQ rights, and was a mentor and a friend of mine. But when I think about that around where we've come, and if I ask, like, how many of you have an immediate family member, close friend, or are yourself lesbian, gay, or bisexual, how many people would raise their hand? Right, almost everybody in the room. And then I say, without violating anyone's confidentiality, would you mind sharing what your connection is with that? What would you say? You already came out as self. Uncle. Brother. Uncle. Brother. I always wonder when my sister would come. My brother. He's a professional homosexual. He gets paid to do this work. I know when my mother, I came out to my mom decades ago, she was like, Jeff, you don't understand. There aren't any gay people in Cleveland. Now my 92-year-old mother thinks everyone's gay. Not everyone's gay. Okay, so people. But then if I ask the same question, how many of you have an immediate family member, close friend, or yourself transgender? How many people would raise their hand? Right, okay. Panel's heavily stacked. So then I say, okay, without violating anyone's confidentiality, would you share as your connection? People have already shared, sort of.
Friends.
Maybe child.
Maybe child, yeah.
Sister-in-law.
So the research shows that 90% of people in the general population will say they have somebody close in their life who's lesbian, gay, or bisexual, and about 8% will say they know someone transgender, right? So that's why in helping to increase people's comfort and confidence level regarding this topic, which we often talk about as a goal here, it's so important to have people sharing their stories, right? Families and transgender people themselves, and especially young people. So I'm so grateful to have this, because when we think about our own learning curves around sexual orientation, it was probably because people came out to us and got to know people, that people's attitudes and knowledge changed. And the other tenet of sort of a growth mindset is that is valuing effort, right? More than inherent qualities. It believes that sort of every characteristic can be learned. It's not like you're inherently either, you know, one way or another. And that's it's a very freeing and liberating concept that values effort, right? And as my yoga teacher would say, practice makes practice. So that it's about, and I think about when my nephew Seamus, we were doing a puzzle together, and there were 48 pieces of this puzzle, and he was able to put it together really fast. He was 4 years old. So I was like, okay, what are we going to do now? So I took out the 148-piece puzzle that was in the same box, and we started doing that, and he was having a really hard time doing it, but he wasn't giving up, and he was really trying and trying. He wasn't getting any piece in, and at one point he looks up at me and says, you know, the more time you spend doing something, the more you get the hang of it. And I thought, really, I'm ready to throw this puzzle out the window, right? But that's a growth mindset, right? That the more time you spend doing something, the more you get the hang of it, right? So that's partially what these conversations are an opportunity to do. It's another opportunity to be talking about this and increasing your own comfort and confidence level regarding this, and even some new terms that are out there that people might not be familiar with. So with that, I'm going to, let me tell you, in addition to, I direct the Safe Schools program for LGBTQ students, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning. And sometimes when we say queer, people are like, wait a second, when I was young, that term was used in a derogatory, and now it's like in the name of this title of a part of a program at the Department of Ed. You know, it's a term that people, especially young people, have reclaimed as a term, a positive term, and a term of empowerment. So that's why we have it in our title and we use it. I also am a consultant around this topic with schools, and now camps has become a major area where we've talked about the summer version of schools in many ways. So it's wonderful to be here. So one of my three good things was yesterday I did a workshop at a school where for faculty and students at a small school with at-risk students who really couldn't make it in a traditional public school setting, and it was just so gratifying. And there was we had people expressing gratitude at the end, and there was this one student that it was just so moving. It wasn't even about gender and sexual orientation, but he said he just wanted to thank his mom, who had many opportunities to give him up and just didn't give him up. And I just thought, it was just so powerful, and she was just thanking his mom for, sticking with him. So, with that, I'm gonna turn this to Zach to lead us in this next piece around terms, and I'm gonna get a slide to put up out there too.
Alright, so what we're going to do next is we're going to talk a little bit about the terminology. When we're talking about any community, especially the LGBTQ community, language can be important. And so we're going to talk about some of the key terms and the definitions of some of just the basic language to know when we're just beginning to understand LGBTQ identities, especially trans identities, and to begin to have conversations about this community. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just turn the person next to you, just find whoever nearest you, if you're the partner you work with when you're sharing your three good things is fine also, and just talk about what you believe the definition of the term transgender to be. So if someone were to ask you what does it mean to be transgender, what would you say? And also just making sure everyone knows that this is our learning space and our learning environment, so we are in a school. And this is definitely a working definition. We don't expect you to be experts. We don't expect it to be completely right. We just want to start getting, kind of seeing where you're at with this understanding, but also kind of just getting the use of talking about this a little bit. So you can turn to someone and discuss this.
Well, gender identity doesn't match sex at birth.
Okay.
Which is how I understand it. I guess I kind of think of it as the idea of which is maybe you're different about the fact that you're genetically fluid. Whereas I think
We're done.
I think we have moments where we may identify as one gender or another. So I think that maybe it's not, I think there's order it changes. Which I think that I'm kind of interested in that. Nothing crazy. Where is it if anybody else? There's a lot of things. But I think there's also, I find it interesting to see how gender identities can be another funny thing that woman at work is like, I'm talking about it, she's like, the other person, the woman I talked to about it, she's like, I'm uncomfortable to use one of the girls. I don't identify as gender, but I was really thrilled that you had that comfort. So I think it's, oh, yeah, I think it's, to a certain extent, it can be, I like ideas, but
No, that's great.
Oh, really? It's funny because I don't really know. I don't really like a I guess I guess your view is shaped by the experiences that you meet. So to a certain extent, I haven't met anybody who's been that strongly.
Ways to think of
But I'm just saying, he's 24, 5 years, he came out, he's so excited, but he doesn't like it. He was, I remember when I was
All right, so we're gonna pull everybody back. So, sorry if I'm cutting anybody off, but then get everyone back together. So, so what do you all talk about? Who wants to? Which pair wants to go first and talk about how they define the word transgender? I mean, I'll let it get awkward.
I'll go.
Preparing well to be a teacher.
A new term for me this year was cisgender. I haven't heard that before. So I kind of, in my mind, it's somebody who identifies as something other than their cisgender.
Okay, awesome. So we're gonna hold that definition. I like that because we're gonna go over the term cisgender. So we will go over that, but thank you for that. So we'll hold that definition definitely. Well, anyone else want to say what they just define transgender as?
Well, we were saying that trans is sort of a misleading word because it insinuates opposite, that your anatomical sex is opposite the gender that you identify as. But it doesn't necessarily, I mean, it's sort of defined by the person who's identifying. So you have to get more information, I think, than just assume that it's opposite.
Yeah, for a lot of these types of identities, a lot of time we'll be talking about claimed identities, we'll be talking about something that's very personal to someone. So so a lot of the definitions we'll give you are kind of just the general, like, kind of basic definition of, like, if we're going to kind of talk about this, what at the basic level are we talking about? But some of these definitions are very personal to certain people. So you can ask someone, you may ask someone, how they identify what being transgender means, and then ask 10 other people and you'll get 10 different definitions. So yeah, I think that's a very excellent point that though we'll talk about it, talk about these definitions in one particular way, the use of these terms can be very different depending on who's saying it and how they identify with them. So thank you for bringing that up. Great. So we're gonna go just shoot into these definitions now. So again, so that were
Don't worry.
Okay, so we're gonna go into some of these definitions. So these, this is not an extensive list of all the terms and definitions that are important to know, but you know, these are the ones that we think are going to be like I said, the important ones for the basics conversations that we're starting to have. So first, biological sex. So when we're talking about biological sex, we're talking about physical anatomy, we're talking about chromosomes, hormones, primary and secondary sex characteristics, these secondary sex characteristics being everything that comes with the onset of puberty. That can be deepening of the voice, hair growth everywhere, menstrual cycles, breast development, all these things that come with the onset of puberty. Those are the things we're talking about when we're talking about biological sex. And when we're talking about biological sex, we're going to use terms like male and female. So we're talking about biological sex, use terms like male and female. And then also you see the word intersex there. So intersex is just, it's referred to as like intersex conditions. What people have often used to call it would be hermaphrodite, but that's a phased out term. It's actually considered a derogatory term now. So intersex would be just someone who either doesn't develop typically of what we would expect of that person based on their biology, or they can sometimes be ambiguous genitals. These are the things we're calling, there's tons of different types of intersex conditions that a person could have. Next is gender identity. So biological sex is about biology, and then the opposite of that would be gender identity, whereas gender identity is how someone actually thinks about themselves. So it's who do I know myself to be? And so when we're talking about gender identity, we're going to use words like man, woman, boy, girl. And then you'll see there's also that middle space there as well. So someone's gender identity is how they think about themselves as being a boy, girl, man, woman, both or neither. And that's where we're talking about kind of that middle space. Those people who maybe identify as maybe both male and female, neither male or female. There's different words that someone can use to describe that. One of the words we have up there is genderqueer. So we talked about the word queer as being a reclaimed term, and some students and some people claim that in terms of identity. So someone who is genderqueer maybe identifies as both male and female, as neither male or female. So it just kind of depends if someone, this would be a term definitely that if someone ever said, you know, I identify as genderqueer, a good follow-up question could always be, you know, what does that mean to you? Since you know, I don't hold the genderqueer identity, this is just, my definition is just the understanding I have from my work with genderqueer students. So it's always important that whenever someone identifies in a way that maybe it's very new to you, to always be able to ask them, you know, what does that mean to you? Another word we hear a lot of students using who are kind of in that middle space is gender fluid as well. That fluidity being the important part of the identity, and about that movement, being able to shift between male, female, not really having to stick to either being one or the other.
Let me just say one word about that, gender fluid. I'm just working with the school right now where there's, I think this student is in 3rd grade and identifies as gender fluid. I mean, identifies sometimes as like, I'm basically said, I'm half girl, I'm half boy. And the school really wanted to, just sort of like you did, help to, since this was going to be a term that was going to be used in the classroom and around the school, wanted to make sure that parents were familiar with this and they were familiar with how this was going to be talked about with students and giving some support for parents about this conversation. So a letter got sent out from the school, similar to this, where then a letter was sent from the parents as well, describing their child as being gender fluid and recognizing this was a new term, that some people might be familiar with transgender, but that this was a new term, and they wanted to describe what their situation was with their family and the support that they were hoping for and where they were in the process. So I just wanted to say that this is something that is certainly out there and another learning experience for many people.
Thank you. And so the next term being gender expression. So gender expression is how we show our gender to others. We use our whole body to be able to do that. So this can be, there are different things in our society that we use and are gendered in a way that we use to denote gender expression. What are some of the things that you think are connected to gender expression, but also some of the things that are gendered in our society? Clothing, yes. Clothing is a big one. Hair length, yep.
Or style, I guess.
Hair length and style, yep.
Makeup or lack of makeup.
Yep,
use
so,
of things like that, or
Yep.
products.
mhm,
Somebody yesterday said deodorant scents.
Right.
One of the
Yeah.
students brought that up.
yeah,
Positioning.
Hobbies.
hobbies, yep,
Activity, sports.
yep. Different sports and activities, yep, and even within that, even within sports, there's like, what sports are the more masculine sports and what are the more like feminine considered sports, so, yeah, even within that, there's this whole, expression piece to it.
Color.
Colors, which is ridiculous.
Reading materials, movies,
Yep.
music.
Toy, and unfortunately toys.
Yep,
Personality traits.
Mannerisms.
yep,
What? Somebody say
Oh, mannerisms.
yeah. Yeah, so these are the things we're talking about. We're talking about gender expression. We can see that there's a lot of things that are, some of these things being more noticeable and bigger, like the style of somebody's hair, their clothing, the way they move, the way they talk, and some of them which are smaller, which are, you know, maybe the things that people are interested in, their hobbies. These are all the things we're talking about. We're talking about gender expression. We've actually come a long way in our society where we've realized that, you know, your gender expression, that your biological sex, so the way that what, or your biological sex, or what's also referred to as sex assigned at birth, really has nothing to do with your gender expression. You know, there are women who wear pants, men who have long hair, these things in our society that, in our construction of what gender is, tell us that like, oh, male identified people should do this, or people who identify as women should do this. We know that in our society that just because you were assigned female at birth doesn't mean you can't like trucks. Just because you were assigned male at birth doesn't mean you can't like dance. These are all the things that we've realized in our society that's new, that we're really coming to understand about people. And the new part of of this is that we're now realizing that your biological sex doesn't determine your gender identity. So just because someone is assigned male at birth, that doesn't mean that they're going to think of themselves as a boy. Or just because someone's assigned female at birth doesn't mean they're going to think of themselves as a girl. And this is really what's really new in our society. We're really beginning to now come and understand that part of people's identities. And then just this last part is sexual orientation. So sexual orientation is, you know, who we're attracted to. Sexual orientation, there's different parts of that. This is the behaviors that people are engaging in. This is also talking about the labels that we're saying, you know, that feel appropriate for us, that we like to use for ourselves. So you see we have, you know, attracted to girls, women, attracted to boys, men, which for some people can be straight depending on who they are. And then we also have some terms in the middle, straight or gay or lesbian, those aren't on there. I'm pretty sure you all got those ones. And then in the middle we have some of those, what can be referred to as middle sexualities. These are ones that can be newer to people. So bisexuality, people usually have an understanding of that. Doesn't, just because someone's bisexual doesn't mean they 50% like girls, 50% like boys. Someone could have dated only boys throughout their whole life and still identify as bisexual. So some of the new words that could be is pansexual, so we heard a little bit about that. So pansexual is, people have explained it as hearts not parts, and the way people describe that is, you know, you like someone based on who they are, their personality, you like to get to know them as a person, and whether they're not transgender, if they're transgender, gender fluid, gender queer, that doesn't matter to you, you like them, you'll like them if you like them. And then asexual, so asexuality itself is its own spectrum, but when we're talking asexual, a lot of people understand it to be like you don't have any sexual attraction to anybody, which is for some asexual people that's what it can be, but are different levels of asexual attraction. Some people may feel no sexual attraction, but romantic attraction, or they feel no sexual attraction to women, but they feel it to men, and they romantically like there's a lot. So this is what we're talking about. Asexuality itself is a spectrum. It's just this again would be a very important word that if someone were ever to describe themselves in this way, that you'd always ask, you know, what does that mean to you when someone were to use this term for themselves. And to go back, a word that we were talking about earlier, the word cisgender, which was brought up, and so when we talk about so. I don't think I give the definition of transgender yet.
There you go.
I assume everyone just knows. So we're talking about, so now that we have an understanding of kind of some of these smaller terms, we can talk about the word transgender. So transgender is when someone whose biological sex, or their sex assigned at birth, doesn't match their gender identity, how they feel about themselves. And therefore, the opposite of that would be someone who's cisgender. Cis, the prefix cis, CIS, meaning same. So that means that someone who's cisgender is someone whose biological sex or their sex assigned at birth does match their gender identity and how they feel about themselves. I know that term is just, some people think, oh, cisgender is like a derogatory term or something. It's not. It's really just to say, if we're gonna say what this is, we're gonna say what that is, and it's just making sure that we're using terminology and we're not saying that, this is transgender and this is normal. We're just saying, calling everything what it is. So that's what, transgender and then cisgender.
And maybe do you want to say something about your gender bread diagram here?
Yeah, sure. So this is a genderbread person. It's cute, right? It's from a website called, it's pronounced metrosexual.com. And really what this does, and I really like about it, is that it takes these 4 aspects of identity, because after we've kind of gone through them individually, broken them down a little bit, it brings them back together, because these are 4 parts of all people's identities that create one whole person. You'll see that even when talking about these identities, we haven't really been exclusively talking about transgender people. Everybody has these parts of themselves. Everybody has a gender identity, a sexual orientation, a biological sex, a gender expression. These are all parts of everybody's identity, and everyone has these. So I think what this really does is it brings those back together. And also I think what I like to say when I look at this is that these are all parts of somebody's identity that you would never know about them unless they told you. You would never know how someone feels about themselves and how someone thinks about themselves in terms of their gender identity unless they told you what that was. I mean, for some people, you might be able to give it a good guess, but you're never really going to know until someone tells you. Same with someone's sexual orientation. You'll never know who someone's attracted to unless they actually tell you how that is that they identify. And also, biological sex. Like, you don't know what's under people's clothes, and if you do, that's a whole nother training that I'm not qualified to give. So these are just things that, we know that that are important to every person. And so, so this is actually what one of my friends who consults with us also calls like the junior varsity version. Like, this is like the basic level, really beginning to understand this. And then there is this version called the gender unicorn, and it's great because it's a unicorn. And this is kind of like the varsity level. It's maybe the collegiate level actually.
We knew that Fayerweather deserved the varsity level.
Yeah, this may be the collegiate.
The 201.
But it's like a unicorn now. And so this is just another way to look at it. So before we saw in the genderbread continuum, it was kind of like these lines, and people felt like they weren't really representing everybody. So really what this does is it kind of breaks down some of these things a little bit more. We'll see even that for for someone's sexual orientation, it brings it down to the different types of attraction. So there's sexual attraction, and then there's romantic and emotional attraction, and it just understands that these are all, that everyone can have parts of these in terms of their identity. Everyone has and then also understanding that it's great to know that for masculinity and femininity, you don't have to be one or the other. And no one really ever is the extreme. And then it also shows, it's important to show that these are qualities that all people have. Even a masculine person can have some feminine qualities, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just showing that these happen at different levels in different people. So you can have this and frame it and keep it forever and love it. And it's cute. So.
And we also have some definitions that we'll pass along here.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to just mention something about transitioning, since that's another term that we have here.
So and then also, a lot of times when we talk about trans identities, we end up talking about transitioning. So when we're talking about transitioning, really what I like to say that transitioning is doing whatever someone needs to do to make themselves feel comfortable in their body. So transitioning is going to look different for every single transgender person. And there are different types of transitioning. So one of the things is that the first one is social transitioning. Social transitioning is usually what people, in terms of the transitioning process, will do first. Social transition, when that happens, usually people are just going through the process of picking new names and pronouns, having their gender expression match their gender identity if that's going to change. Just in just doing and just living in society the way in which they identify their gender identity and not what people have expected of them based on their biological sex or their sex assigned at birth. And this is what's happening in a social transitioning. For a lot of the school people, you're dealing more often with a social transition. And then for the family, and if families have like trans kids that maybe one day will go further, you may deal with a medical transition if that's something that ends up happening. But it's really important to note that not every transgender person will pursue medical transition. Often people say when they see trans people, they're like, oh, have you had the surgery yet? I don't know what that surgery is. And if anyone knows, you please tell me, because I have no idea. But people think that the end game for trans and gender nonconforming people is surgery, and that's really not it. So medical transition can happen differently. People are going to do what's going to make them feel good. So some people will go use hormone replacement therapy, and go on cross-sex hormones. Some people there's also not the surgery, because there are tons of different types of surgeries that people can get that are gender affirming surgeries. And I won't really go into all those, but again, that's something that, also because that a medical transition is going to be between a person and maybe in their parents, their doctor, possibly a partner, whoever they feel comfortable telling, so that not always something that you're going to be concerning yourself with. I mean, the one doctor in the room might, but it's not always something you're going to be concerned with. Yes?
Just to say what I think maybe to me is implied, you said so nicely that transitioning is doing whatever the person needs to do to feel comfortable in their body, and you described social transitioning. I imagine social transitioning is something that can happen over a lifetime, many different times, different things at different times. So just to state the obvious, that it's not a stage. It's like a process that at this point in my life, this is what feels good to me, and at this point in my life, this is what feels good.
Yeah, so there's really no guided process. I mean, there's really no guided process. It's just whatever feels good to that person at that time. And sometimes it also transitioning can look differently just because of safety. Some people may not be able to transition because they're not in a place where they're safe to do that. They don't have a supportive family, they don't have a supportive school, so they maybe will change their gender expression, but they won't change their name and pronouns because they don't feel safe enough to be able to, or supported enough to do that. So when we're talking about transitioning, we're also talking about safety, and we're talking about financial access. We're talking, though transitioning can be very expensive, and also when in some states where people who are transgender can be fired just for being transgender. In Massachusetts you can't, but in some states that's true. Sometimes if you're gonna get fired from your job because you're transitioning, that's another reason why people are not transition, is because they need work, they need money, and it can be very hard to find a job when you're transitioning or when you're a trans person.
Sorry, on what grounds are you, I understand that if it's not written in as a protected status, but on what grounds are people fired?
Because they're transgender.
But is there?
Because of prejudice.
Well, yeah.
Well, no, I understand
Yeah.
prejudice and all that.
Performance. You can
But
just
that's what I'm
say,
saying. Sorry,
you know,
what are people making up to say is?
In Massachusetts, if someone were to fire you because you were trans, they can't do that, so they'd have to
You can
make.
legally say in some states, I am firing you because you are transgender.
Yes. Yes.
That is fascinating.
In this state, you can serve just because we don't have protections and public accommodations. You could be refused service for being transgender. I could walk in somewhere. Someone could be like, if they eye me for being trans, they're like, you're transgender. I am not going to serve you, and that's legal. So.
Ed, did you
I'm gonna model asking a
Yeah.
question that I know nothing about. So I guess I know around sexual orientation, sometimes people that identify bi, sometimes they're met with their partner's a man, sometimes a woman, they can go back and forth. I understand that concept and seen that in practice. With people transitioning, to sometimes people, what I know from the media and everything, people tend to go one direction. But do people sometimes, they say they're going from male, I'll say socially, to female, live in that realm for a while, and then say, oh, and now I'm moving back? because we don't hear, I'm saying in the media, it's kind of only moving in one direction.
Yeah.
This thing that we don't match versus people that kind of.
Yeah, so I think, you know, if we're talking about media representation of trans identities, we're looking at a very binary depiction of trans people. We'll see a lot of trans people like myself we're very secure, like I was assigned female at birth, but I am male. And we're seeing I think in a lot of cases we're seeing that like for some people when they're really that, not always that are people who are binary are like that, they're going back like that. Sorry, that was a lot that I was saying. Okay. The media depicts a lot of binary trans people. That's not really necessarily the trans experience. There are trans people who are more gender queer or gender fluid, and so who do have that movement. I mean, I don't really know in terms of like the numbers of, you know, that happening often, but I haven't heard often of people who are like making a full transition then being like, oh, that wasn't for me. There are some people who are maybe going on hormones and they're realizing, oh, that's not for me, because sometimes you gotta try it to realize you didn't want it, and that's okay. So, you know, I think, you know, we do account for people who do have that movement, and those are gender queer, gender fluid people who hold those identities. But in terms of, you know, going through a transition and being like, oh no, or like moving back and forth dramatically like that, I don't see that happening too often. But I will say there are gender fluid and gender queer people who exist, so, yeah.
So why don't we move on then for people to share some more of their personal experiences now? Did you have anything else you wanted to say about medical transition or social transition?
No.
Maybe just distinguishing, I think, also just to make sure we make the point, sexual orientation and gender identity, that because we have LGBT, people will often be like, wait, if you're transgender, does that mean you're gay? Right? People will ask that because it's all together, right? What would you say if somebody asked you that question?
No.
Because why? Right, they're two different spectrums, right? So one is gender identity and one is sexual orientation. Gender identity is how you think about yourself as a boy or girl, man or woman, both or neither. Sexual orientation for our purposes to whom you're attracted to, right?
The only way in which sexual orientation and gender identity are connected is that you always base someone's sexual orientation off of their gender identity. So when we're talking about people and how they identify, it's about their gender identity and how gender identity always trumps biological sex. And so when we're talking about people's gender identities, it's based on how they think about themselves in terms of their gender identity. So someone who is...
Use your own experience, maybe.
So even though I'm assigned female at birth, and I think of myself as a boy, if I was in a relationship with a girl, I wouldn't be a lesbian relationship because we were both assigned female at birth. It could be a straight relationship if I'm a boy and she's a girl. I could be bisexual, she could be straight. So we're always basing someone's sexual orientation off of their gender identity.
And again, around sexual orientation, Zach had defined this bisexual and pansexual. I sometimes think of pansexual as sort of like bisexual plus. Like bisexual is being attracted to somebody not necessarily based on their biological sex. Pansexual is being attracted to people not necessarily based on their biological sex or their gender identity. It's a more inclusive term that's inclusive of gender identities as well as biological sex. Okay, thanks. So with that, we're going to introduce Alex here by showing...
Should I turn off the lights for this? Because you can't really see it that well, I don't think.
Okay, so here is Alex, when was this that you were at, this was last year at family camp? So a year ago, about a year ago this month, or in October I think it was, 2014, okay. I don't know, Alex, we could have you doing this live here, I don't know why we're showing the video.
Hi, Zena and Elizabeth, and I'm going to be rapping a song that me and my mom wrote together about how I came out and told her that I was transgender. And right there.
She's right here.
Love you! So I need you guys' help. Can you guys help them with the beat? Take it away, Zara. Come on, people. is pretty rare. Please try to imagine if this were you, or you may have something that you can relate it to. So I was just a little kid about 7 or 8, and I had something to say that could mellow the weight. So I went to my mom that hot day in July with a hope in my heart and a tear in my eye. Basically, I said, this girl is your son, and I've always felt this way, and I had to be fun. We sat there together for a little while. I thought she was sad, but then I saw her smile. She told me I was brave and that she was so proud that I came to her so she could help me sort things out. My family and friends were also on board, and the support that I got just had me floored. And from that day on, I started my path, and we worked together and even faced some rock. Together we come through whatever this life brings. We will continue to love, and I'll continue to sing. And I know that there are other kids who feel like I do, and I truly understand what they are going through. Thank you all for sitting here and taking the time to let me tell my message in the form of a rhyme. Please treat everyone the way you expect. We all deserve freedom, love, and respect.
Awesome. Next. So, on the right there, you saw that it said Camp Aeronautic. Alex performed this when he was at family camp at Camp Aeronautic, which is a camp for transgender young people and their families. And I was there when you performed that last year. And it's run and owned by Nick Teich, who actually is local. He lives in Newton, and he's the author of this book, Transgender 101. There are a few books here that you might want to look at that are kind of Bibles: Transgender Child, this one, Gender Born, Gender Made. But Nick Teich wrote that one from Camp Aeronautic. So with that, I am so excited that Alex, Amy, and Roger are here to talk a little bit about their experience. So please give them a warm welcome.
You want us to start from the beginning? So Alex, when he, there's just a few signs looking back, like only hindsight, that I put it together a little bit. When he was 3, once he said he wanted to be a boy, and I just thought, oh, that's one of those things kids say. I didn't really think much of it. Whenever he got to pick his own clothes, he'd pick boys' clothes. I just thought he had, his own fashion sense, and we just went with it like a tomboy. And when he was 8, he came to me and said, like right after he turned 8, he came to me and said, I have something to tell you. And for us, it wasn't a slow transition. Like some people can see it coming a mile away. For us, it was like one day I had 2 daughters, and then all of a sudden, it was it was a different story. So he said, I feel like I should be a boy. And my first reaction was I did a poor job of giving him good female role models. And I said, girls can do anything boys can do. And he said, no, Mom, I love girls, I love you, I love Elizabeth. I just don't feel like it's right. And he's tears for me to be a girl. And then I understood exactly what he was saying. And I knew that what I said in that moment was crucial. So I said to him, this is a thing. Like, there are people that feel this way, and it's okay. And I don't know a lot about it, but there are people who do, and they will help us through it. And so I said, if that's what is happening, then we will get you there. But right now, let's just do what you need to do to feel good. And he said, I want to cut my hair. So we went immediately cut his hair. And then we just asked our friends that had boy clothes, and we had a friend who just emptied her closet for him. And he was crying tears of joy as he was going through this pile of clothes. Remember? It was like 2 full trash bags. We took them all home. We didn't know what he would like or anything. And so socially, he transitioned over that summer, and we had to call the school and say, look, Alex left this way, and his name was already Alex, and only went by Alex, so that was the easy part. But he's coming back, as a new person. So we had to, we met with the principal, so we'd be on their radar, and we all fumbled through it. I mean, I was new at advocating for it. I didn't know my rights. I didn't know how to support Alex the best way, what was the most important thing to do. But we all learned together, so actually it worked out. And there were some kids that were not as nice, but the principal was very on top of it, and they all kept their word that they looked out for him, and it's been pretty good. And now that we're up here in Massachusetts, they've been just like amazing, celebratory, like taking him to all the different 5th grade classrooms to talk about transgender, which is extremely important because if a kid does not know what transgender is until they're past puberty, like, a lot of things have been missed for that person, and their experience can be much, much better for everyone if they do identify that earlier. I mean, we are so lucky because we've had 2 years, 2.5 years, and all we've had to do is cut his hair and let him be who he is, and it's been, you know, it's been pretty affirming that this is, you know, you don't get, you know, if there's no like time frame, like if it's this way for 3 months or 6 months, or you don't, there's no like time that you know, but I mean, the more time goes on, you know, that they don't kind of waver. I mean, that's different from when they are gender variant, but Alex is transgender, like he is, he identifies as a boy. He has a lot of feminine interests and stuff like that. He likes to cheerlead and dance and paint fingernails, and you're awesome at painting fingernails, and do all kinds of and cook. Well, that, yeah, I mean, but I'm saying if you talk about gender, what you would think is stereotypical. Some things people would say to me, well, he still likes cheerleading, so maybe he's not a boy. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with it. Like, boys can like, you know, anything. So it's a whole different spectrum. But so we've just been educating as we go along and learning ourselves a lot from people like Jeff and.
So Alex, maybe you could talk a little bit about what it's been like for you at school, and what it's been like to talk to students about who you are and educating them regarding what it means to be transgender.
Well, for the most part, at my new school, since we just moved to a new town or a new state, everything has been going amazing. The whole school has been supportive. At my old school, there was like half the grade who weren't very nice to me. There were a couple people who were not, like, totally not supporting me. They would tease me in front of a lot of people behind the teacher's back. But otherwise, it's been really good, and I've had a lot.
Talk about the person who's there now, but because of you.
Oh yeah, and there's actually there is another transgender girl now in my old school who is now with the teacher that I had for 4th grade,
And she came out because she saw that Alex had a good experience. And the principal told the mom that he had paved the way and that they had, you know, they knew how to support her, which was great.
That was at your old school before you moved?
that was my old school.
So what's it been like at this new school where, talk a little bit about how you talk to students about what it means to be transgender.
Well, I wanted them to like get to know me first before I told them that I was transgender. And I don't know.
You wanted to give them a chance to get to
Yeah,
know
I
you
wanted-
before he's put that out on the table. But they said, you know, you're coming to a new school, you don't have to tell them anything, you know, it's up to you. And he said, nope, I need to know if people are worth my time. Like, I don't wanna, you know, make any really strong friendships and worry that it comes out, right? So
Yeah.
then you did.
And how did you explain to them what it meant to be transgender?
Well, like half the class knew. It was not like they didn't know, because like I basically told them I was born female. I was born like a female, so that's what I was assigned at birth. But that's not me. That's not who I feel like I am. That is not who I want to be.
Awesome.
And they were awesome. They even, they had an overnight camping trip that they do with the class,
yeah.
and he roomed with the boys.
Yep,
There was no question about it. I didn't even have to say it to the teacher. And he came home and told me that they were asking him for male roommates, and I was just so impressed that I didn't even have to say anything about that. It was great.
And there was one part that that I actually noticed like a week ago or something, which is there were 3 buildings. There was a boys and girls, there was an all girls, and there was an all boys. And they put me in the all boys, which was personally was very happy about then being in the girls and boys because I wouldn't know if they thought that I was both or something. So that was really exciting.
Yeah.
And Roger, could you just talk a little bit about what your own experience has been, putting you on the spot a little bit, and how you've talked about this with other people?
Yeah, okay. Well, let's get it straight here. My wife is actually really in charge of everything. You know? And I try to keep up and try to educate myself a little. And, you know, it's very fluent, obviously. But, you know, I've always had very positive experiences. I think what I was really impressed about is the kids nowadays. They really don't care. They just say, okay, and they move on. And I think the age when I was in school, it's a long time ago, but I don't believe trans kids would have had the same experience. I think a lot has changed over the years, and you also can see people that accept it who don't accept it. It's really more, really older people that have problems. The younger people really don't have any problems anymore. And for me, it's also it's still a journey, and I try to keep up with my wife.
And have you had conversations with other people where you've described to them that Alex is transgender and what that means?
I let my wife deal with this, to be honest. Frankly, you know, at work, I think you're getting into, did you tell at work? And I have to say, no, I didn't. And I'm still debating, should I or shouldn't I not? And I think I just let it happen. If it's certainly is a topic, then I will tell them. But I try not to provoke it. And that's probably just a safety mechanism I have.
It's personal. You don't have to.
And with friends and family members, the conversations that you've had, either of you?
That's absolutely
We're completely, yeah.
That's different.
Yeah,
And
we're
how have those gone?
really good, really good. I mean, we've had definitely different people who had different levels of understanding and needed different amounts of reminders and, you know, to help them understand what was happening. But my aunt she's in her 70s, she's a Catholic nun. She took it completely wonderfully. She's, you know, she was one of the ones I had to kind of like educate a little bit more, but she prays every day. She said that the world's going to become a more accepting place for everyone. She was the one we were worried about, and that it wasn't that way. So you don't know, you know. But everything, I mean, we're out to everybody. I mean, he's out to everybody. There's no way I can't be out, you know, like, so.
But there was one of the people that she lived with who is also a Catholic nun. She told them about me and how I was transgender, and my aunt's friend said she thinks she's transgender. And
She said from learning about it, she said, I think that's me. And she's in her 70s and they've been friends. She didn't know, and she didn't even know what it was until they were talking about Alex. So.
Anybody have? Let's give them a round of applause. So anybody have a comment or question they want to ask about their experience at all?
Just curious what state you came from.
Connecticut.
Okay.
Which was very accepting, you know, very good.
Alex, can I ask you a question? Before you came out, did you ever feel like you sort of had this secret with your classmates that you weren't sure sort of how to let your friends know?
Well, not really. I never kept it a secret from them.
Okay.
Like in 3rd grade, it was the first year I went to school. The first day I was telling everybody that I was transgender and what it meant. But I think that's why I didn't tell them this year so fast. I think they didn't get it, and then they started not being so nice about it.
Do you mean before he came out?
Yeah.
Well, when you were
When you
5,
were younger.
Right.
When you were
Even
in
younger.
1st and 2nd and kindergarten. Like when you were in kindergarten, did you feel like you were keeping a secret or you weren't?
Oh, well, when I was in kindergarten, I did have a bad experience with it. I was dressing as a tomboy. I wore lots of boys' clothes, shoes, and I got bullied by the oldest kids in school, and I was one of the youngest, and that kind of gave me, like, this might not be okay, some people might not think it's okay, and I was a little scared to tell my parents because I didn't know if they were one of those people who wouldn't accept. But that's not.
I have a question. In your mom's story, you came to her and said, I have to tell you this thing. It seems like that's a big thing. Like, how did you think about telling her? And like, because you probably you didn't have any role models, right? So
You didn't already know transgender people?
No, I never knew transgender.
Right, so you had like, I'm kind of curious about in your own head or feelings, like how did you almost construct that idea? Like, how did you figure that out? What did it feel like? Or what, like, does that make any sense?
Yeah, well, I kind of don't remember, but I'll try to say what I think probably happened. Well, it's been nagging me my whole life. I've been, like, wanting to not be a girl for as long as I can remember. But, that just one day, I couldn't take it anymore. It was too much for me, too long. And so, I told my mom. That's how it started.
I'm gonna just show, just to have a transgender girl's voice in the room as well. This is Lexi, who transitioned when she was in 5th grade. She was from a small rural town. She's now in 8th grade. I think that this is from when she was in 6th grade, and she was talking a little bit about her experience.
So I started going all out at age, like maybe 4. Started wearing dress up, and I just always played with dress up, and I had like baby dolls. And then my mom told me to settle me, like I had to go to school as a boy, so I had to settle down for a little bit. So maybe like I settled down for like 5 years, and then came back again. So I started getting that urge, like just wanting to be a girl and wearing that dress. It was just, and I started going to my friend's house and wearing all her clothes, and she had really nice clothes. And I would do her hair in an updo, and then we would have a fashion show downstairs, and then you would dress up again in a different outfit and keep on doing that. And then I remember going to school that day. I was wearing a white shorts and a butterfly shirt, and I remember walking in. It was just so much fun, and everybody looked at me when I walked in. They started smiling at me, and it was just so amazing. The transition went so smoothly. My mom's always been helpful. Like, she's been buying me clothes, and she's just been loving me. And some other kids, they don't have that. Like, their parents aren't okay with it. But my parents, they've just been very, very helpful. My mom's a little bit sad about me transitioning, but then she kind of got over it. And now she has another girl. I think she kind of likes that. Buying me girl stuff and changing my room around. She likes that stuff.
So Lexi, her principal was actually a Green Beret and fought in Vietnam, and so talk about support in unexpected places.
Yes, did you have a question?
I have a question. I was really touched, I'm just speechless. I've been saying to my friend Jen, I'm just like crying the whole time. I'm so moved. The whole thing is so moving. I can hardly contain myself. I was thinking about your comment about the sleepover at school. That's very profound to me. I'm really impressed with the school, and I'm thinking about a comment I feel like maybe you made, Roger, but I think about how adults worry about things. So I imagine, and this is in any number of ways, but I'll just take that example. I could imagine a school worrying on behalf of the other kids. It could be many levels. It could be worrying on behalf of the other kids, what are they gonna say? They could worry about what the other kids' parents say. It's any number of things. And I see this, it's not just at a school, I could imagine it at other friends' houses, or I could at a camp, at a restaurant. So I'm sort of floored that the school was able to do that, and I wonder sort of how they were able to do that without necessarily like sending a letter to every person. How can you?
They were just really. I mean, I spent some time with them, just talking to them about what it was, and we just kind of agreed we were going to teach each other. So she saw something, I sent her articles, she sent me, asked me questions, and I said to her, about this I didn't even say it, but they were talking about doing a letter or something for the parents, something like this. They wanted to invite, parents to it later on in the year. And I said to them, you could get some backlash, from parents who do not want you teaching this, or kids, and they just said to me, we're fine with that. We feel like this is the right thing to do, and we can handle it. So they knew that already, and they were just okay with it. I think they knew what they were doing was right. So makes it easier.
Lexington has a really wonderful history with sort of including or not including books. Sort of Entangle Makes Three, and there was sort of a community within Lexington actually that was really up in arms, and really the school system stood so tall and so proud, sort of on behalf of. Back then it was sort of same-sex parenting is what it was about, but this is now maybe 20 years ago, or I'm blanking out anymore. So I think Lexington particularly has a history of sort of strength and standing proud. So I really, just like Lisa, just love hearing the story. The other thing I was going to say, I could imagine it would have been so easy when Alex came to you to say, "Oh, honey, you'll feel better. Come, let me give you a big hug," and sort of, out of love, sort of minimize his experience, And I think that's what moves me the most, probably as a parent, that you had sort of the respect, maybe, or just the wisdom, to just actually really take him so seriously at step zero. It just moves me tremendously.
Real quick to say about the comment about how the school knew what to do and they didn't think about the concerns of the other students, or what about this. It's good that the school did it, because when we're seeing schools who are concerned about the other students or the pushback from the community, that's when we're really seeing discrimination happening. We're seeing students who are being told, well, you're going to do this because you're different, and being made, students who are schools who are you're going to use the nurse's bathroom because we don't want to make the other students uncomfortable. That's when we're seeing schools making those assumptions about what the response from the community is going to be, the response from the students are going to be. That's when we're really seeing discrimination happening, and trans students who aren't being supported, because like what has been said, students kind of a lot of the times don't care. Sometimes they will. It just depends on how they're raised and what they've been taught around this. But sometimes, we see a lot of times where students, it's our biggest issue a lot of the times when we're doing this work is adults.
Yeah. They actually asked me to audit them. They came in and said, look at our bathroom signs, look at our hallways, tell us what else we can do, let us know. And so I did all those things, and they videotaped one of Alex's speaking to one of the classes, and she said, I want you to tell me anything I could have done and that would have been better, and I want Alex to look at it and tell me anything that would have made him feel better in that moment. They're totally open to the criticism, and they said this, they even said to me, this is the world, we're teaching our kids, in their mission statement, to teach them to grow up in a diverse and accepting, or something. I can't remember the words in their mission statement, but that it was, they just stood behind it, so it's great.
And one of the things we like to say, I mean, gender identity was added as a protected category. The student anti-discrimination law in Title IX has been interpreted that the protections from discrimination on the basis of sex has been interpreted to mean gender identity and gender expression as well. Is that this is the no flinch moment for administrators and for school personnel and parents, that equal is equal. You cannot treat a student as being equal in all the areas of their lives except for the ones that make you uncomfortable without undermining the rest. And those areas tend to be bathrooms and locker rooms, right? And bathrooms have been used historically where discomfort has been used to treat people inequitably, specifically around race. And also around bathrooms, there are many, bathrooms tend to be a really anxiety-ridden place for transgender young people. And, you know, Zach, maybe you could just talk a little about your experience with bathrooms, because I think it really illustrates it powerfully.
Yeah. So I never really had, I don't like bathrooms, which is a weird thing for people to say. So for me, when I transitioned, so I began socially so I came out as transgender when I was 14, and I began my social transition so I came out as transgender at 14 years old at the end of 7th grade, and I began my social transition at 14 in the beginning of 8th grade. And when I began socially transitioning, I had my gender expression change to look like a boy, but at my school and the school system are still identifying as with my female pronouns and my female name. So therefore I was still using a female bathroom. So when I was in 8th grade, you know, I would go into the female bathroom and I would get told on for being in there. My friends would make fun of me for going in there. So I was just like, but I also knew I wasn't allowed to use the men's bathroom. So for me, it was like, what's the point? And you know, I'd always heard of people getting picked on and bullied for going into for bathroom stuff. So I was like, well, in high school, using the men's bathroom isn't going to be an option for me. So for me, my decision was to just stop using the bathroom. So the whole 4 years I was in high school, I never went to the bathroom during the day. I would get to school most days at 6:40 in the morning because school starts hellishly early. And I wouldn't be home until about 9:30 at night because they banned practice and theater practice, and this whole time I wasn't going to the bathroom. And then I also, because of the issues around the bathroom and not having to want to go, in end of 7th grade going to 8th grade, I developed an eating disorder, because what do you do when you don't want to have to use the bathroom? You don't eat, you don't drink. So for me that became quite an issue, because not eating apparently is a big problem. That's what my parents told me. But we're seeing that's a lot of experience of our trans youth who are, you know, they're developing eating disorders because they're not wanting to have to go to the bathroom. Also for other reasons as well, that they're kind of using food restriction to mitigate some other experiences that they're having. But for a lot of times it's bathroom issues. You know, always, you know, the thing they always tell you before you do like MCAS or like your SATs is like, you know, have a good breakfast. Like my thing was to not eat and drink at all because I didn't want to have to go to the bathroom, because I would not be going to the bathroom the whole time. So nothing worse than having to sit and take a test and you have to go to the bathroom. And that's how I ended up writing about the Hunger Games with my SATs, because I had to go to the bathroom the whole time, but I just couldn't go. I like walked by it like 4 times, but I just like couldn't do it. So by the end of it, I couldn't even concentrate. And that's a strong experience that a lot of our students are having, that bathrooms are being made, and they're not an issue, they're being made into an issue by other people, saying that this is going to be an issue. So for us, it's not. We go in, we know how to use the bathroom. They teach you that in kindergarten. You go in, you do what you gotta do, you get out. Depending on transitioning your gender, you may have to learn a little bit of new bathroom etiquette, but besides that, you go in, you do what you gotta do, you get out. But everyone else has made it into such an issue that for a lot of trans students, it's just better to just avoid it.
Then there's people like Lexi who uses the girls' bathroom, and she says, I love the girls' bathroom. So much happens there, right? And she speaks about developmentally and socially how it's important that you're able to do what everybody else does as well. The other answer, like to the question too about some of the controversy, is that we have students younger and younger, like Alex and younger, who are socially transitioning. So if they're starting in kindergarten, because often, you know, gender identity, if you think about your own children, when they started not only exhibiting behavior that's gendered in our culture, but they had a sense of themselves as a boy or a girl, often it's as early as age 2, sometimes 1 or 2. The research shows gender identity is established by age 4. as opposed to sexual orientation that tends to be 9 or 10 years old. So transgender, and this isn't all, but often transgender young people as opposed to gender nonconforming, sometimes they'll say that the litmus test is if it's insistent, persistent, and consistent, their sense of their gender being different from their assigned sex at birth. So it's intense, it's over time, and it doesn't change. Now for the majority of transgender people, young people, that's not the case necessarily, because there's a lot of variety around that. But when we're talking about young people who are from a very early age saying, God made a mistake, why are you calling me a girl, or why are you calling me a boy, and experiencing significant distress, now the diagnosis in the DSM-5 is gender dysphoria as opposed to gender identity disorder that it was before, but that their sense of themselves being different from their assigned sex at birth and experiencing a lot of distress if they can't be themselves. You see a lot of anxiety and depression, and sometimes it's being diagnosed on the spectrum at disproportionate numbers. And then when they can transition, all of the symptoms disappear. They're no longer anxious, no longer depressed, no longer even diagnosed along the spectrum, right? So, but the other thing is that some of those young people are starting kindergarten, their name and their gender markers changed. It's being treated like a medical diagnosis that people are only being told this on a need-to-know basis, right? So they're going through all their medical records, every record has been changed, there's nothing in their file, and it might be only the principal or the head of school and the school nurse who know this information. So when people start talking about, oh, where is this transgender person going to go sleep on overnight, or where are they going to go to the bathroom, it's like, you may think you know, but it's no one's business what's underneath people's clothes. We room people by their gender identity. And some people might say, well, I know where this person is because I know how they presented themselves last year, right? It's not happening, but people are afraid maybe of getting that question. Like, you may think you know. And we are developing practices and policies here so all students feel included, and that means that we room people by their gender identity, and that's what we're respecting here. It is not a boy in the girls' room, it's a girl in the girls' room, right? So that's important to know when you're talking, because often the conversation can be around, what are we doing with this particular student? Well, it's like, you have no idea. It's like sexual orientation. When Corey Johnson came out 10 or 15 years ago as captain of his football team, people were like, hey, well, I don't know if I want to change with him in the bathroom or in the locker room, right? If somebody said that right now, what would you say? You'd say, good luck. You have no idea who might be gay in the locker room, right? If you want to make sure you're not changing publicly, you better change in a private place, right? That's the same thing around transgender young people too. It's like, if you want to make sure you're not in a bathroom with transgender people or in a locker room or rooming, then you better make sure you're in a private space, because we can't guarantee that, and that's confidential private information that we're not going to share. And you may think you know, but you really have no idea. There may very well be transgender young people around us, and as Zach said, you only know this information if somebody shares it with you.
So just help me understand a little bit about some of the reactions from schools. And I keep thinking of Mr. Rogers saying if it can be mentioned, it can be managed. And it seems that some of the concern that schools have expressed around bathrooms or camps or sleeping is conflating gender identity with sexual activity. And so and maybe I'm missing something in the level of prejudice, but that what they need mention, or what we can help with mentioning, is this is about, like we said, gender identity. This is not about sexual activity. And so we're hoping there isn't sexual activity in the bathroom or
there
in
shouldn't
the
be.
fourth grade
There should
camp.
be. There shouldn't be.
With boys and boys or
Right, exactly, right.
And most rooming arrangements actually are based at the middle school and high school level, at least, on the assumption of heterosexuality.
Well, right,
right?
of course, right.
So,
But does that help in a school situation? Because, and we've been talking about a situation we've been dealing with, at our school as well. Does it help to just bring up that conflated problem? Have you seen that schools can then better sort it out when they realize they're conflating two of those?
I think that's very important. It's like, no, we don't allow any sexual activity or inappropriate exposure that takes place in bathrooms, locker rooms, or on field trips. We will take seriously across the board.
I mean, for me personally, I think we really want to get down to the base of the issue. People are afraid of male-bodied people in predominantly spaces with female-bodied people. So really what it is, people are afraid of the penis in the girls' bathroom. That's what it is, because no one, from what I've seen in schools, no one's really concerned about the the female bodied person going to predominantly male
That's
space,
interesting. Okay.
it's
That's
like there's
true.
such a hypocrisy within it because
Oh.
it's really, that's been what I've seen, especially when we're talking about it like in society, so
Mhm.
society comes into the schools, is the issues that we're seeing is what is everyone saying is the issue around like the public accommodations bill and trans people getting freely use whatever bathroom with the bathroom consistent with their gender identity is, well, men are gonna dress up as women and go into the girls' bathroom. That's the issue around it. That's what people are, whether they say it or not, can also
That's
be,
what's at the
and
core.
I think that's what's at the
Okay.
core of this, is having those different body parts together in the victimization of that.
I was just at a school where there's a transgender girl who's using the girls' bathroom, and the people were saying, like, well, what do we do when somebody says, well, there's a penis in the girls' room? And one of this guidance counselor was ready to retire, said, it's not like it's hanging from the ceiling. And I was like, oh, she said that. So I wasn't expecting that answer. But I think she was basically speaking like, listen, it's not, believe me, these children are going to be more private
Right.
about their bodies than anyone else. And if there's any inappropriateness going on, we will take that
So
seriously.
your urethra in the bathroom for you.
Right.
You know.
So I'm struggling a little bit with, like we were talking a little bit about sort of like it's nobody's business, like the anonymity a little bit around that,
For
right?
some
You
people.
don't really know. But then also about sort of the coming out process. And I think, you know, in the situation that we're thinking about in my classroom, just thinking about also sort of this that's why I asked the question about it being a secret. So I think I'm struggling with sort of all of that, and I guess is it just really about what makes that child, that individual feel most whole, most like their self, most
Everybody
comfortable?
deserves that, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody wants that, whether it's what you've always gotten or what you've never had before, that's what we all want.
Right.
So-
And I think the struggle too is then often, I think you have a very unique situation where as parents you were right up to speed with your child, and I think that in the situation that I'm thinking of, that's not necessarily the case, and so if the child is sort of at a faster pace than the parents are, and you have sort of this ambiguous period in the middle where, I mean, you're
But
all
that's
kind
always
of.
the case, right? Because the parents may not know the kid. The kid will feel their transgenderness,
Right.
or whatever the noun would be, and then will come to the parent, and the parent will go, you know, I thought so. Or they'll say, it's a surprise, but we're on board this train with you, or something like that. But usually,
Similar to
you come
sexual-
out,
or similar to sexual orientation.
Exactly. So
People could be at different places.
But you come
Sometimes
out
the
to the
parent can know it
parents.
first.
And I
And
think,
then the-
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, when he came out to me, I put a face on that I was right there with him, and I was, but I didn't know what I was right there with yet. Like, I just knew that it was important that I was with him. I still had to go back and there's a book on that table that I read in one night because I just couldn't put it down.
Which one?
The Transgender Child, yes. Got my feet under me. It really made me feel like, but anyway, so, and, you know, between me and my husband, we had different levels of coming to it. Like, I was trying to support Alex. My husband thought I was encouraging it at first. You know, he wasn't comfortable. Not that he doesn't have any problems with the LGBT community, but it was just kind of an adjustment that he didn't realize was not going away, or, you know, he kind of watched to see if it was a phase for a while. So there was definitely struggles there, and there's people who are the biggest advocates right now as parents who will say in a meeting, it took me 2 years after my kid came out, and I feel so horrible that I, you know, dragged my feet on it or whatever, but it doesn't have anything, sometimes people really do just come around it just takes different time, you know.
You know, I want to just bring up the concept of pride as part of the coming out process, and it goes from, you know, Alex said, I just couldn't take it, it was too much for me, I couldn't take it anymore, and then you come out. And then there is a place of, the reason that it's a secret is because it feels shameful, and then suddenly it's too big, and even if it's shameful, I need to come out. And then slowly there's a concept of pride, and there's this sort of evolving experience. And so when you don't sort of talk about it at work, it's sort of a need to know basis, or maybe if I'm asked, of course I'll say it, but I don't have to be the politician about this, you know. And I think that evolution is at some point, maybe you'll feel like you just want to say it because maybe there's another parent of a transgender kid that it would be a lifesaver for somebody to know you. But when we're not there yet, we're not there yet, you know. And, you know, my kids out at me constantly when they were 2 and 3 going to the supermarket. You know, I got 2 dads and, you know, it's my dad. You know, and I think that there is, that's the pride that, you know, in this case, with that example, the kids are really proud of their family, or we are really proud of our kids or of our family. But I think the pride is sort of this continuum, you know, that it's not just acceptance, it's not just we want the best for our kid, we're going to support our kid in any possible way that we can. We love her, we're so proud of our kid, to I'm just bubbling over because this is so important to me, you know, and there's sort of a continuum.
I just want to remind you that again, and also, but like coming out and feeling like you can come out is also a privilege, is that you know that you can come out and you can find support in some way. Because coming out, again, very much is about safety. A student, that's why like the insistent, persistent, consistent thing is such a huge issue, really, when we're talking about people. One, because it definitely does not incorporate gender fluid and gender queer people who aren't going to be insistent, consistent, and persistent. And it also doesn't account for safety. It doesn't account for a student may, you know, say that they are, that, you know, maybe at school is like kind of dabbling with the idea that they're trans, and at home, you know, they're getting, you know, their parent is like, you know, their parent is yelling at them every day if they even look feminine or if they look masculine. So you're not always gonna see that with people, because there are some people who maybe there are some people I know where they say, well, I can only be trans here because everywhere else I'm not safe. It's not safe for me. Or it's other people who are trans, like myself, who like, and I'm only gonna be trans in certain spaces because I know that if I come out, I can be putting myself in a position where I'm now unsafe. So like there's that part of it as well.
And there's also, not every transgender or genderqueer person wants to be an advocate. They just want to transition and go on with their lives, and that's okay. We can't make them, you know, be out there. I mean, that's just not for everybody. I mean, in my husband's situation, he doesn't go to work and announce it, obviously. It's just not pertinent. I don't think I've ever met almost hardly anyone from your office ever. He's just, it's very, but we did go to a beach weekend, you know, beach day with one of your supervisors or something, or coworkers, and we, you know, came out because one year Alex was a girl, and the next year, so we explained it, and, you know, and that could have totally set off a chain reaction. You weren't worried about that. It's just that he just doesn't go. So he's like, you know, it's like, it didn't, yeah, so, but I mean, you know, I'm just saying, like, there's different levels of, you know, you can be proud, but also not feel like it's something that you share.
Can I just say, I'm sorry, but we have run over our childcare 25 minutes.
Ooh.
I feel okay with 5 minutes more, but if we go farther
Great.
than 8:30, that'd be really bad.
Cool.
So could we just
We
finish?
can wrap up now. This will be good. So parental support is very important, right? And we see it right here, that the role of parental support in contributing to a child's well-being. The Family Acceptance Project is a great website that speaks to it. Rick is talking about like kind of the move toward celebratory parents really here. And one of the things that I can't tell you the number of young people who said, I'm fine, can you talk to my parents? Right? So one of your roles often is, just like around a number of issues, is helping parents to know what it really means to support their child, right? A parent supporting a child's sexual orientation or gender identity and expression, that child, the research shows, is less likely to be bullied at school, right? Sometimes parents think, listen, I'm trying to do this for my child because it's what's best for them. They don't recognize that it's creating exactly the opposite effect of what they were hoping for, right? So this is where I think that it's important to recognize your role, that even if you help a parent to move around just a little bit, to be a little bit more accepting, the benefits are enormous, right? They don't have to go from A to Z to for that to happen. I'm just going to put up one other slide that just has resources that are available, because it has some websites that you might just want to look at for more information. And that is this, especially welcomingschools.org and genderspectrum.org. These are some books that are over there. We're also going to pass around just some evaluations that we're going to be able to share with the school about what people got from this session and what their questions still are. And we have extra pens if people want any as well. If you wouldn't mind just like taking that and pass around.
And I'm happy to stay a little bit and wait and lock up, so if you don't have, to, like, people who have to leave should really go, and people with kids in childcare, I'm sorry, but you have to get them.
We do have kids in childcare. So let's, if people are able to fill that out, we'd really appreciate that. I want to give one last thank you to the panel here and a round of acknowledgement. And I just want for the people who actually don't have children who can hang out here for a moment, I want you to just see this one other mom that we shared with the staff, and I think it's worthwhile. She has a transgender son, and I just want you to have a sense of her.
Luke has always been what everybody else thought was a tomboy. From the time he was born, he played with boys' toys, trains, trucks, was into sports. But the defining moments were probably in preschool when he started school and wanted to wear clothes like his friends. Like, why can't I wear a shirt like his shirt? Or why can't I have those sneakers? And pretty soon we were shopping in the boys' department exclusively. Would never ever wear a girl's bathing suit, always wanted to wear a boy's bathing suit at the beach. And the real moment for everybody in the family was the first communion, when he absolutely refused to wear that dress. Came to me a week before sobbing and said, please, please, just whatever you do, don't make me wear that dress in front of everybody. So I went out and I bought him a suit, and he was so happy when I came home. Just his smile lit up the room. He tried it on for the whole week ahead of time, wanted his picture taken, and was so proud that day, so proud to go into the church wearing a suit. I know who I can tell and who I can't tell. I mean, I talk to people all day long, so I know there are going to be certain people that aren't going to be accepting of this, and I'm prepared to defend her, and I'm prepared to lose friends, and I'm sure we will, but the people that I've told have been really supportive.
Notice the different use of pronouns.
And what do you say to people?
I just say my child is transgender and she identifies as a boy, so we're going to start calling her a boy now, and we're going to change pronouns because this is what he wants and we want him to be happy.
And what do people say?
Some people say, well, how do you know? It's too young. You don't know now. There's no way. She could change her mind. What if it's just a phase and you do all this and then she says, well, now I want to be Skylar again. But I say to them, you know, first of all, I live with this child. I've lived with this for 9 years. I'm his mother and I know. And a lot of times when I tell people, they feel sorry for me, and they'll actually apologize. They'll say, I'm so sorry you're going through all this. You have so much on your plate. And I just say, don't feel sorry for me. I am so happy that God gave him to me. That's always my response. And I am, because I know there are a lot of people who wouldn't be okay with this and would try to change and say, you know, that's not how you feel, that's not how it is. And I've always let him be who he was.
Laura, you had your hand up. Did you have a pressing question or comment?
No, it's okay.
Do you know what you wanted to say? No? You're okay?
Now we want to know.
It's great to see you again. So Ed, thanks for having this, and we're happy to hang out a little bit too. Anything on this table is for reference back here. Anything there's more than one of, you're welcome to. There's Safe Zone stickers. There's some handouts. I have my card, so anything you want to take, please feel free, and continue the conversation. You're making a difference, and it's a great place to be. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. All right.
Hey Jeff, I have a
Ed?
a sister.
Really?
In that, it's very strange. So when I first got here years ago, this guy, the secretary, this guy, and he was before I came here, I was open, but I was like,
great.
Wasn't on your radar screen yet. I mean, I live in Seattle, so
Great.
liberal place.
Thank you very much.
I know people. And Somehow I missed the scene with he has what I can't remember what it was, something, but
Well,
then 2 weeks later, something else, they got set up, and he never showed up. I think that was the day he yeah.
He was supposed to be leaving that day?
Yeah. And
incredible.
Yeah. And again, I was so new to Fayerweather, I knew none of his history here or anything. It's one of those like, when I learned of who he was, I was like, oh my god, so close to being a very important person.
Oh, you tell me, it feels like the bathroom, you know what? Where is it here?
Right, yep.
Growing, hungry, growing.
My question for us around the bathrooms is the unit trip.
No, I had to get it. I was trying to go to gather Owen so that.
Jen is saying, should we make assumptions?
Alexa can go home.
Or should it be missed? But then, you could get to that thing of, right, but then you could get to that thing of, homosexuality or, right? So if you let people choose by what they're comfortable with, so it brings up a whole, right. See, I actually think the whole, like, mixed gender, I'm like, clearly there's a lot of sexual activity stuff, and like, now again, if you get to choose your room, I guess you're choosing your room, right? You don't have to do that.
No, right.
I don't know why a woman would ever want to live with a man in terms of what they're filming.
Especially if girl live with.
Right. I'm like, yeah.
And dirty. Yes, that is just
Well, that's the conversation.
That's the conversation. The locker room conversation.
The little stickers on that table.
And then do you,
I mean, the lens of like mom. I mean, the
do you
lens of
really
like
do you really talk about it and bring all these spotlights to this, or it seems like it was very organic?
Right.
History.
But there's, see, the difference is when we go to, right, when we go to,
also about like older children, right?
when we go to farm school, you're in a bunk room. I actually think then everyone's changed in the bathroom and they're sleeping bags, that's fine. But then when you're in a hotel room and there's 4 kids and the doors are
It's about right.
right, and you're sharing a bed, right? Because it's already a thing where they always come back, so-and-so slept in their clothes or they slept in the bathtub and all these
They didn't feel comfortable
right.
sleeping in the same bed with another student.
Yeah. So.
I come from a generation, a culture.
Let them choose.
No, we do all the grooming because, and we don't tell them until they're, I think, there, because there's so much social dynamics of who's in and who's out. So we don't, and we spend a lot of time orchestrating all that. Because then
Dreams are the compromise that might then